Hey guys, welcome to Over the Top Talk. We have Anthony here
Yep, how we doing?
with our special guest today, the Cheese Pro. How we doing, man?
Good, good. Thank you guys for having me on.
No
Yeah, it's our
problem.
pleasure.
So, I'm just gonna start with our first sponsor of the day. Thank you, Geek, for sponsoring us actually last night. Make sure you use code Over the Top Talk for $20 off your first order. And thank you again, SeatGeek. We really appreciate it.
Yep, and special thank you to Rogue Energy. You can go pick yourself up a tub today. Use code over the top talk, get 10% off your order, and it'll mean the world to us if you tried their many of different delicious flavors.
All right, and we can start this. Do you want to start off with telling us and the people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am the Gorgonzola Rock and Roller, the Sultan of Swiss, the Amazing Asiago. More importantly, I am the cheddar weight champion. As you can see right here, there's the proof. I am the cheese. I am based out of Florida, and I wrestle all over the state. And I've gone national as of last year. And I am currently doing some things with the NWA. So there's some cool stuff going on in my world. I also am a trivia host and try and have a lot of fun with that. And I do a lot of stuff. I'm not as cool as you guys with the podcast and everything, but I do make podcasts and, my online content as cheesy as humanly possible. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
about me.
yeah, that's
I guess I'll
great.
start here. Where did you get like this cheese theme?
uh, well, it started, when I started training in wrestling, I trained under Jay Lethal at, it was known as the Lethal Academy back then. Now it's currently known as the Wrestling Lab, one of the greatest places to train for wrestling. Of course, I'm biased, but we we're 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 breaking kayfabe on this podcast, right?
Yeah,
I guess if I'm asking that, it has to be right. But
yeah,
when going through the training and wrestling training, you go through promo class, or any good wrestling school is going to get you through a promo session. And part of that with Jay is you have to come up with a character. Well, I didn't really have a character. My real name's TJ, so I was going to call myself the Tej. Dorky thing that my friends would call me back in high school and growing up. Um, but there's an old Saturday Night Live skit with Chris Farley, and he plays a character by the name of Matt Foley. And Matt Foley is the guy who lives in a van down by the river, living off a steady supply of government cheese. So during promo day, I came up with that promo. I kind of borrowed from that. And in wrestling, it's not stealing, it's borrowing. And I told everybody in the room they looked and smelled like they lived on a steady supply of government cheese. And so Jay liked the promo. And after that, he started calling me government cheese. And then we eventually removed the government from it. And then I just became the cheese. And so I said, I think I have something here. I love cheese. I've made cheese before. Let me figure this out. Let me see where I can go. And 2 cheese tattoos later, and a couple of runs around the country and in the NWA later, I am the cheese.
yeah.
It's
That's awesome,
amazing.
man. That's a great story. That's a amazing story, actually.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, speaking about that, going off of that, what kind of inspired you to become a wrestler? Join the wrestling world.
Wrestling has always been a passion of mine. Pro wrestling, it's one of those things. It's like For it's a lot of things to a lot of people, and it can be a family oriented thing. It could be something to get you away from your family. It could be something that you watch in spite of your family, and everybody has a pro wrestling story if you are a pro wrestling fan. And I will always be a pro wrestling fan because my maternal grandparents, who I grew up in the woods in North Florida, and which is a lot like South Georgia, and we were poor. We could barely pick up any over the air TVs. There was an antenna, a little crooked antenna we had on the top of their house, and we could pick up wrestling. And whenever we were able to pick up Championship Wrestling from Florida, NWA, WCW, we got all over it. Me and my grandmother and grandfather. My grandfather was a salt of the earth guy. He was a World War II veteran. He was a coal miner. I mean, he was a man's man. He was not to be trifled with. And so anything that he liked to me was automatically cool, and he loved wrestling. So they got me into it. Whenever my grandfather passed away, I watched it with my grandmother so we could feel close to him. And it just continued all throughout my adulthood. There was a brief time where I took a little break because whenever we were kids, my brother and I hit each other with chairs. So wrestling was banned in the house for a little while. But it was that love and that passion that my grandparents shared for wrestling, and they gave that to me. And it brought us close together, and every time I watch wrestling, especially something having to do with Sting, who obviously just retired, and anybody who's kind of from that ilk of that era in the 80s, it made me the passion for wrestling will never die. I'm sure I'm a pro wrestler. I've got a cool character that I love. It's goofy, it's silly, it's fun, but I also get to be ferocious when I need to be. But I'll always be a wrestling fan, so it'll always be a passion in my heart, like forever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
incredible.
makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most challenging part about like your job and like wrestling?
That's a good question. I think the challenging part, and it's changed when I started. When I first started, the biggest challenge for me was I started whenever I was older. And so, I didn't recover as quick as the younger guys that were training with me. And I wasn't there to get things as quick as they did athletically. But where I excelled was the promos and the character development stuff, and that really helped me through. So, but now I think the biggest challenge in wrestling for me personally is I have a daughter. I have a 14-month-old daughter, and I love her more than anything in this entire world. And just when I don't say I have to, I get to go to these shows and be on these shows and travel around and wrestle. But leaving her whenever she can't come, and if it's too far of a show or something like that, leaving her, I think, is the hardest part of that job.
Yeah, I understand that. And like you said, starting at like an older age, how do you like prepare yourself, physically and mentally for a match? Like what process do you go through, preparing yourself?
This is a fun question too. So going back and being kind of sappy about that, my family and stuff, which I hope you guys and your listeners don't mind, but I have a pretty big. It's wrestling is really wrapped into my family, and in the woods, even though we only lived about 30 or 40 yards from each other as a kid, um, I was scared of stepping on a snake or, getting like a random wild dog or something stupid. We did have bobcats where I grew up and all that kind of stuff. I was scared of something getting me, whether it was the boogeyman or some real
Mhm.
thing. And so my mom, when it was dark, most of the time I'd go to sneak off to my grandparents during the day and end up watching wrestling and stay the night. But whenever it was dark, my mom would walk with me and she would sing this song called Delta Dawn. And probably not a song that you guys would ever listen to. It's an old country song by Tanya Tucker. And it's been covered and redone in many, many ways, but it's a beautiful song. And my mom had a really good singing voice, and she would sing it to me as we were walking down there. So when I hear that song, it kind of triggers that memory for me. And so like that walk that we would take to my grandparents' house together would get me all hyped up for wrestling,
Mhm.
and when I hear that song, I think of that time, and it's something sets off in my brain and I get really hyped. Like I'm like super ready to go, but it's also at the same time, weirdly, it's super calming. It calms all the bad nerves that make you nervous and make you mess up and jittery, but it
Mhm.
infuses all those good nerves that you need to be amped for your audience. And so right before I go out to the curtain, whether anybody listens or not, I'm either humming or singing Delta Dawn by Tanya Tucker, and it gets me going. And so that what hypes my mental state to prepare for any match.
Yeah, that's another really, really good story. And you have a lot of good stories in your book. Yeah.
I was sitting here reading from a book. I'm sorry if my answers are long-winded. I'm a
Nah,
storyteller.
Yeah, no
nah, we're
problem.
enjoying
We
it.
love that. We want to hear all of it.
So, obviously, you said wrestling's like huge in your family. Is there any wrestlers that like inspired your like moveset?
Um, I think the two biggest wrestlers that I've borrowed from are my two favorite wrestlers of all time, which are Sting and Dusty Rhodes. Now, they couldn't be
Oh,
further away from each other on the spectrum
mhm.
of the way they do their moves, but my finishing maneuver is called the DD cheese, and it's it's a scorpion death drop. It's a reverse DDT, and
Mhm.
so I do it in a similar way that Sting does his. But I also have the say cheese elbow. So it's just like it's like the bionic elbow. Sometimes it can hit you. It can be an elbow drop. Sometimes it can be a say cheese, bang, step right in front of me. You're out. So yeah, Dusty and Sting, the two biggest influences on me as wrestlers whenever I was a kid, way back when.
Yeah, those are some great choices. Obviously Dusty Rhodes still and Sting, having like amazing careers. Like you said, Sting just retiring the other day. Putting 64 years old. That's an amazing career.
Right.
That's an incredible career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, talking about your the DD cheese and the say cheese elbow. Can you tell us about any fun like fan interactions that you've had?
Oh man. Um, I've had a lot of fun fan interactions. The whole reason, aside from initially doing this for my grandparents and to show me that I could do this, is the biggest thing is the fans. And what I do is I go off of how I would want a wrestler to behave towards me as a fan. And I do that, but I do it like to the extreme, like I, you know, I don't say this, other people do, but they say you're the John Cena of the indies. Like sometimes I'll come out and I'll throw a cheese hat to the kids or something like that. Some lucky kid is going to get a piece of cheese merchandise at every show that I'm on, guaranteed for free. But
Yep.
it's the interactions with the young kids that really stick out for me. But having said all that, I'm going to go in a different direction. There's a story that's a wild fan interaction. I'm not going to say the promotion, but I will
All
say
right.
who I'm working with because he's become one of my friends and rode up and down the road together. It's a fellow by the name of Bushwhacker Luke, one half of the Bushwhackers. And he was my tag partner that night. By the way, nobody will ever see this match. It will never see the light of day. It's it was interesting to say the least, but the tapes are lost. It's gone. Nobody will ever see it. So I can do my best to just tell you. And I don't think I've ever told this story on a podcast before. So you guys are getting the exclusive.
Oh yeah.
Myself and Bushwhacker Luke were the cheese whackers for the night. And, I got to walk out like this, do the whole thing and going out there. And there's no guardrail at the show for some reason. And there's a lady who has clearly had 1 to 7 too many cocktails, if you feel me. And she kept coming up to the ring. Again, no guardrail. So she kept coming up to the ring and she was like 3 sheets into the wind, completely hammered. And she was like crying. And then she would grab Bushwhacker Luke's leg, and she's like, "Do you remember when you came over here to Cocoa Beach, and it was 1987, and you were here, and blah blah blah." And Bushwhacker Luke, he's got that thick New Zealand accent. He's like, "What, mate?" He's like, "Get away from me, get away!" And he looks at me, and he's like, "Cheese, is she part of the show? Does she know the promoter?" I'm like, "Luke, I've never seen her before in my life. I don't know who she is." And am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Why not? Let's go. Why not?
Sure. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I'll
Nah, you're
censor.
good.
It was she kept tugging at Luke's leg, and Luke was like, "Mate, why is she doing that? Who is she, mate?" And then I could tell that he was done. So I went over there politely to her. By the way, the match was about to start. Like they hadn't rung the bell yet, but the match was like close to being started. Luke like kicks at her. He doesn't kick her at all. He's like he was polite for the first 4 times she did it, and then on the 5th time he's like, "Go away, F off," And I had to go over to this lady and she's crying. And I'm like, "Ma'am, listen, we've got a match going on right now. We will talk to you after the match. There's nothing we can do for you right now." And she's like, "Yeah, just ask him if he remembers me from 1987 back when he came and toured Florida, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Lady, I'm telling you, if you don't sit down right now, I'm going to have security take you out of this place." And it was a wild interaction. And I think she eventually got escorted out because like she was doing that, trying to do that to all the wrestlers. And Luke was just like, he's looking at me. He's like, "What the F? What the F?" And he was just like sitting there, and I'm just like, "I don't know, man." I call him Uncle Luke. I was like, "I don't know, Uncle Luke. Got to finish this match." And he's like, "All right, mate." But that was like the wildest, most interesting. Maybe I didn't do the story justice, but it might be a you had to be there story. But it was fantastic.
That sounds like an incredible story.
It was wild.
With that, do you have a favorite venue or like place you've been that you've like really liked wrestling at?
Two different ones. My favorite for all like a bunch of different reasons. It is there was this promotion that to me it was magical. Um, it was called Grind Time Wrestling. Um, I don't. It's one of those independent shows, independent promotions that only come along every once in a blue moon, and it was really cool. We had a great vibe. It was in a CrossFit gym. Everybody was, you know, they would bring drinks and food from the local restaurant called Munchie's 420 Cafe, and it was just so amazing. Like it was a great atmosphere. It was in a CrossFit gym, and so we could probably only fit like a couple hundred people in there at best. And it was just the atmosphere was electric all the time. Everybody was having a good time. Nobody left there ever saying they had a bad time, and it just kept growing and growing until eventually, something happened with the rent or the building, and it just we couldn't make it happen anymore. And it just went away, but it'll forever live in my memory as like my favorite thing on the indies that I've done. But in NWA, they had a TV taping for Power, and it was at the PBS studios here in Tampa. And I had never been to PBS studios, but the PBS studios, are a big deal to someone my age. I'm assuming you guys are like young, like, and I'm not trying to talk down to you. I'm older, so I'm just like, how old are you,
We're
Anthony?
both,
I'm 18. We're both 18.
Okay, so you guys are all right. So
yeah.
you guys
Hmm.
probably didn't grow up watching Sesame Street, right? Maybe a
No,
little?
Yeah, we
yeah, I
did,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah?
I
Yep.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's
Yep.
multi-generational. So, it was a big deal to me
Hmm.
going to PBS Studios because that's where they, would have Sesame Street, and that's the PBS Studios is what PBS is what, would bring Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and all that to the masses. But the cool thing about that place is it was a big old TV studio. It has this huge vaulted doors that you gotta um, use all of your strength to swing, and they had this great NWA setup. Whoever set the ring and everything up did a beautiful job. It was fantastic, and we oversold the place. Like we had it could only fit like 100 something people. We had like 200 in there, and they were all chanting cheese, cheese, cheese. And it was just like, it was a dream. Like it was an absolute dream come true. So those two things, for those reasons, I'll always remember as being my favorite,
Yeah.
venues.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. Oh my God. Um, yeah, so now we have a few more questions for you. One of them being, so obviously we have it's all like wrestling fans that watch this, and for any inspiring wrestlers out there, you have any advice for them? Anything they could take away to work at becoming a wrestler if that was like their passion in the future?
Yes. And I'll talk directly to them just like this.
Hmm.
Uh, Hello, human being, young or old. My advice to you is do not settle for what someone else tells you you should do. Don't listen to people who tell you that you cannot do something, and screw your timeline, because I became a wrestler in my 30s, and that's the story for quite a few wrestlers these days. But back whenever I started watching wrestling, that wasn't the case. The only one that you'd hear of would be a DDP or someone like that. But I started in my 30s, and wrestling kept me grounded and keeps me grounded every day. So, a more practical piece of advice is find a character that resonates with you. Everybody says it's you with the volume turned up to 10. Well, find something that is more parallel to you or adjacent to you, and then infuse yourself into that character. That's what I would say to anybody who is looking to train to become a professional wrestler. Also, you can do it. It can be done. I promise.
Yeah,
That's
that is some pretty inspiring stuff right there.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we talked about your favorite venue earlier. Do you have a favorite like opponent you've gone against?
oh man. See, this is what gets me in trouble is because whenever I say one, then I have like 3 or 4 other guys that are just like, "What? We had a great match. It was done, rah, 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 rah." Yeah, I get it.
All right, how about we give a top five? How about we give a top five?
Oh, top 5. Okay, I'll give it top 5.
All right.
Um, top 5, and I'll do it in from 5 moving down. Um, number 5 would be uh, Luigi Primo. You guys know Luigi Primo, the pizza guy. It's a me, Luigi Primo.
Mhm.
Um, and he's become a good friend and, a match made in heaven. We were going to, one of these days, we're going to team up to be the pizza powers or cheese pizza, whichever one you prefer. Um, and then there's the headbangers who, again, it was just surreal. Um, I faced them in a tag team match, but it was just absolutely surreal and crazy that these guys who I watched on TV whenever I was your age, uh, or a little bit younger than you, actually, um, were chopping my chest into hamburger meat. And they have the hardest chops in the business. I don't care what anybody says, but then there's a fella by the name. I would check him out if I were you. He's on the Indies. He doesn't wrestle as frequently as he used to, but he's still out there. But that's a fella by the name of Axe Clover. He's absolutely a gem of a human being and a gem of a wrestler, and can be downright scary in the ring and out of the ring because he's just such a presence. Um, and then so that was what, 3, 5, 5, 4, 3. So now 2 is a fellow by the name of Logan Cruz. He's a good friend of mine. I also host Trivia with the Cheese, but I've invited Logan to the party, and he does cues with Cruz, and we do it at this bar called Beer Busters. He's actually doing it right now.
Mhm.
Because I do once a month. He does all the other Tuesdays, because I have a child.
Mhm.
And he and I, he was one of my day ones. We started training together and became really good friends, but we can also be bitter and heated enemies in the ring. We like one day we're hosting a charity event for Christmas toys for kids. And then the next day we're working in the ring with each other and slapping the piss out of each other. Um, but I would have to say, right, current as it stands, the number one opponent of mine is a guy by the name of Cody Behringer. Um, he's an absolute hell of a gear maker as well. He makes all my gear, but I'm giving a little bit of behind the scenes thing, but anybody with the internet can put 2 and 2 together. But we can go into any crowd and any atmosphere and steal the show because of the chemistry we have in the ring as opponents. Um, that's when I'm in the ring with him, that's when you see a lot more of a brawling, brutal cheese, like I'm just ready to fight.
Mhm.
Um, but the cheese, hitting people in the cheese with the face. I've never hit anybody with more cheese than I have with Cody Behringer, and for that, he is my number one opponent.
Yeah, that's an awesome reason right there. That's an awesome reason. Number one opponent, the cheese. And with that, you know, this is kind of a harder question, I think, but what would be your dream with wrestling? If you could have a dream, anywhere to go, or just like anything else, just let us all know. What's your dream with professional wrestling?
It's a good question because I'm sure a lot of people are just like, I want to be signed to WWE, or I want to have a contract with TNA, or I want
Mhm.
to be signed to AEW, whatever. And I get all that. That's all good. One of my
Mhm.
dear friends, or a couple of my really good friends, are signed to TNA, and they enjoy that life and all that. And I'm not saying that or excuse me, AEW, not TNA. I do have a few friends at TNA, but um, I I think those are good reasons to have. But my ultimate dream for wrestling, where I am currently, is to be a convention guy. Anytime somebody has a wrestling convention, a comic convention, uh, anime convention that likes wrestling adjacent stuff, or a movie convention that has wrestling, any convention that will house wrestling, I want to be the guy that those places call, and they're like, "Hey, we've got a, you know, cheese convention in Wisconsin. We need you to fly up here because everybody wants to meet the wrestler, the cheese, or we want you to have a match with so and so." Like, I get the contract and the money is all well and good, but
Mhm.
I would want to make the money to be, you know, courted by these different conventions. And hopefully there's a promoter or someone who runs wrestling shows at conventions, are watching this, and they'll think, "Oh, well, maybe we should book the cheese." That's my goal, is to be the convention guy where I can go around from convention to a convention across the country, maybe even the world, and show up as the cheese, because even if they don't know who I am before I get there, they
Mhm.
will after I've been there, and they will have enjoyed their experience. Whatever mom or dad is bringing their child to that convention, that child's going to leave with a smile on their face, and that mom and dad's going to be like, "Yes, I'm so thankful that we came to this convention, we saw the cheese, whatever. He's reinvigorated my love for silly wrestling and all that kind of stuff." So yeah, I would. My ultimate dream is to be the convention guy, where I just get flown out to conventions and get paid to wrestle at conventions. That sounds like the best dream I could ever have.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's
And
amazing.
us just meeting you right now, I can say hands down, who else would not want to meet the cheese? You're
Oh,
awesome, man.
what a nice guy.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, Obviously you wrestle and like have a personal life. Do you find it harder or easier to like balance the two? Obviously you have a kid, so
Yeah, I won't say that it's easy, but I won't quite say that it's hard. I'm somewhere in the middle right now. I'm trying to find balance. I have my wife, the Cheesette, who is amazing, and I want to give her enough time to, be herself, and that's something I'm currently working on. Or we're working on together as parents, and I want to make sure she has enough time to herself to where she can be true to herself, but I also want to spend enough time with my daughter so I can be a constant presence in life, and because I just miss her. Because like I said, whenever I leave for a show, she just holds her little arms up and she's like, "Daddy, take me with you," and I just can't do it. So um, that's, I would say, the best way to describe it is tricky, but it can be
Mhm.
done, and it's something that I've just started to put my foot down on and really work on. And but it can be done. The wrestling does bleed into personal life for sure. I would say 95% of my friends are pro wrestlers right now, and that's cool. I
Mhm.
love them. We're a weird bunch, and that's why most of us get along. But yeah, it's just finding that balance is tricky, but it is doable. And when it happens, and I hit all my points for everybody for the week, give everybody the right amount of attention that they're able to be given per day, really, because I try and get better every day. As long as I hit all of those, then I'm good. Like it's like the best feeling.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yep, and I think we have about one more question here. Obviously you have a kid. Um, do you think when she's older, she's gonna like want to wrestle like you?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. She's already very strong. Um, she's pretty resilient, pretty tough. She shakes things off. In the 14 months that I've known her, she shakes things off pretty easily. But I would encourage her, and it would be an honor to kind of walk her through that because, you know, it's a it's an interesting business, professional wrestling, because of, there's a lot of sometimes it's a lot harder for second generation people.
Hmm.
So I would be able to tell her about all the pitfalls, all the stuff that I've had to go through in the first couple of years in the business. And I can tell her how to navigate those and which ones to avoid and all that. So yeah, I would take the approach because I truly want people to do what they're passionate about for their lives. And if she's
Hmm.
truly, truly passionate about wrestling and she came to me and wanted to wrestle, then I would support her and I would show her the right way. And I would make sure that she is safe and yeah, I would guide her through the process. Absolutely, I would.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. That's yeah. And
We're
we
gonna
finished up all of
actually
our questions right here. Yeah, we
um
finished up our questions here. And are
we
you
can
taking that
pass it
one?
off
Can I
to
take
you
it?
now. If you want to promote any like matches, like social media, is this your time?
Okay. Anybody who's watching, I would ask that you one big thing that I've got for 2024 is I'd like to get my YouTube channel numbers up. So I am begging and pleading to your viewers and listeners, if you would just follow me or subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's at the Cheese Pro Wrestler, all one thing, the Cheese Pro Wrestler. If you subscribe, I promise I will subscribe to your channel and I will, on any social media, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, I will follow you back. I always do. If you're a bot, I usually don't. But yeah, I would love it if you guys would join me on the social media stuff, but I would also love it if you guys would, if anybody is in the Florida area and specifically St. Pete and Tampa area, just go to my Instagram page and you'll see all of my events right there. Instagram, and it's on Facebook as well, but Instagram and Facebook are the places to go for that. If you're in Florida, come see those events. If you want to visit Florida, look at those events, see if there's something there for you. I'm bouncing around the state this entire month, so that's going to be fun and cool and good and whatever. Um, but yeah, and I also have the NWA tapings coming up on April 12th and 13th. So those will be here. So if you're in Florida, come to those specifically. I'm also
Mhm.
going to be shilling tickets for them so I can help them sell the building out, which I don't see anything wrong with. And I'm super proud to do that for NWA. And yeah, just follow me on the socials and get at me. Come see me at a show. If you see me at a show, just come up to me and talk to me. You don't have to worry about me shooing you away or anything. I'll talk to anybody about wrestling, and especially if you
Mhm.
want to talk about these. I'll talk to anybody about me and or wrestling for as long as you want, basically. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And we'll make sure to link all your socials down below in the description of our video when it goes up.
Yeah.
Everyone, listen to us. Go follow the cheese on all socials, like he said, and that'll make us all happy here.
yes.
Yeah.
And obviously you're our first wrestler like we've had on there, so we really appreciate you coming on
Oh,
here. It's
really?
been great, yeah.
Yes, you are first one.
I'm
Yeah.
glad. I appreciate you guys. How long have you guys been doing the podcast?
I think about like a month now.
Yeah, about a
Awesome.
month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're a small group out of Boston.
Hmm.
Austin or Boston?
Oh, Boston.
Boston, Mass.
Wow. Oh, I should see
Yeah.
because of the hat. I see it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and the
Hmm.
Celtic, you got a Celtics hat on. Okay, cool. That's one of
Yeah.
my goals. I got my best friend lives in Boston. He works he's like a manager at like a Lululemon or something. But I've been trying to find a promotion that would book me up there in Boston just so I can go and say that I wrestled in Boston and he went to one of my shows, but I haven't found anybody that's gotten back to me. So I'm trying to. Y'all don't have a lot of indies up there, do you?
No, there's not really a lot of shows up here.
Uh,
Not a lot.
Is it cold up there right now? Is it snowing or anything?
It's really really cold up here. It's in like the high 30s, low 40s, like almost every day right now. So yeah, it's
You
pretty
don't go
cold.
out as much. I've lived in Florida my whole life. It's like here, it's in the morning time it can be in the 60s maybe, but in the afternoon it's always in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, yeah. I want to visit Florida. Hopefully, go down the warm weather. See you. Maybe go
Yeah,
to one of your indie shows though.
yeah. You come on. You guys are always welcome. If you're ever coming to Florida and you are able to come to any of my shows, or if I'm in a different state because I can't seem to get up to Mass.
Mm,
Once I get up to Mass, I definitely would want to get you guys out there. But if any other show, any other state that I'm in, I'll get you guys tickets if you want to come out. So,
thank you,
thank you.
man. I
yeah,
really
of course.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you once again for coming on here. It's been really fun getting to know you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You
been a
guys
pleasure. Yep.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
So with that, thank you for everyone who listened. Obviously, it's been fun interviewing the cheese, fun getting to know you, and your fun gimmicks and like more serious gimmicks. So thank you for giving us like your time for this.
Sure. Of course.
And thank you guys all who listened to this and hope everyone has a great night.
Yep. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.